Welcome back to another episode of Dugout Talk. Today is Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. Today is our Seattle Mariners edition. We'll be talking about some of the recent issues that has been going on in the Mariners front office. I'm not sure if you guys have been, up to date on that news, but it hasn't been good. The Seattle Mariners announced on Monday that President Kevin Mather has resigned from his position following his disparaging comments that surfaced in a leaked video over the weekend. Mariners chairman and managing partner John Stanton will act as president and CEO until a successor is chosen. The team said in a statement. Mather, speaking in a Zoom meeting with the Seattle area Rotary Club earlier this month, made remarks about suppressing players' service time, said that the team did not want to pay the salary of a Japanese player's interpreter, and criticized the English of one of the Mariners' Dominican-born prospects. I believe that was Julio Rodriguez. He also issued an apology on Sunday night before he did, in fact, resign Monday. I'll post, the picture that was kind of a picture of some notes that was taken down from someone who attended the meeting. It wasn't good.
No.
Mr. Mather very clearly stated that, he wanted to take advantage of players' service time. He was purposely offering players super low ball, team-friendly contracts in hopes to take advantage of young players that don't have much money. There have been multiple bullpen pitchers, especially in the minor leagues and even in the major leagues, who have, taken these contracts, accepted them, or at least, heavily considered it, because for them, yeah, maybe you get, X amount of money over X amount of years. That's a lot of money. That's money that could set them up for life if they're smart with it, and it could set their family up for life if they're smart with it. But the fact of the matter is they are actually worth much, much more. The value that they bring to their teams is, in the billions when it's all said and done. These owners make billions of dollars off their players over the course of, a few years. So to think that, they would also try to, not financially support, not financially back the players that they're making them all this money is it's a little unfortunate.
What Kevin Mather did this happened 2 weeks ago, I believe. The recording got released over the weekend, but what Kevin Mather did, um, he screwed this team over big
Mm-hmm.
time. What he came out and said to a Rotary Club, which to me feels like he felt like he was in privacy.
Yeah.
He probably did not realize that this was going to be on air and go out to the public, which that is ignorant of him to think that because of
Mm-hmm.
what we have today as far as technology goes. No matter what you say, everything can and will be used against you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame, and I feel so terribly bad for Mariners fans. They've gone through enough heartbreak and trouble as it is the last 20 years. And to have their CEO come out and basically talk crap about his team, his employees, and pretty much say that they're not worth his time.
Mm-hmm.
Why would any of these guys want to go and play for this team after that? He broke a lot of trust. He broke a lot of relationships. These guys, I can't imagine how most of these guys even want to play for this team anymore. And, he made a comment about Kyle Seeger. He
Mm-hmm.
made a comment about him, who is the cornerstone of the franchise. He's been with the team is coming into his 12th season with the major league team now. He pretty much said, this is the final year of his contract. This will be the end of his time here. So he pretty much said they're not going to pick up the option. And Kyle Seager's wife came out and said, so I guess we have to put the house up for sale. I mean, why would you say something like that? Are you really that ignorant? I mean, it does not make sense to me why someone would come out and say that, especially about a cornerstone franchise player like Kyle Seeger. And he also said he another thing I noticed in this Rotary Club meeting was he needed to make these unnecessary side remarks.
Yeah.
Kyle Seeger is overpaid. Marco Gonzalez is boring. Julio Rodriguez's English is terrible. Great kid, terrible English. Hisashi Iwakuma, great person, terrible English. Why does that matter? Why are you coming out and so why do you have to make a point about that? It's absolutely ridiculous. It's stupid. And this isn't just Kevin Mather. This is Jerry DiPoto and Scott Service. And the thing that makes me upset is Jerry DiPoto and Scott Service have both come out and said, this is not us. Okay, this may not be you guys, but you guys are just as guilty because a few years ago, they were accused of making remarks about how their Latin players are too slow. I don't know what that means, but I don't think that doesn't mean anything good. Or that women don't belong in baseball. They're not innocent either. And this is one of those things that you could ruin a franchise by doing this. They have, and like I've already said, they have broken trust, and don't be surprised if these guys don't want to come back.
Yeah.
Jared Kalanick, the number 4 overall prospect, he was offered a 6-year deal, a team-friendly 6-year deal. He turned it down, and Mather comes out and says he's not going to get called up on opening day. Spring training hasn't even started yet at this point. And he's coming out and saying that Jared Kalanick will not be on the opening day roster. Expect to see him around late April. He just admitted to manipulating service time without using the words manipulating service time. But that's what he basically just did. And we have seen this not just in the Mariners, but we've seen this around the rest of the league too. We saw it with Chris Bryant. He filed a grievance against the Cubs with it and lost. This is something that Kalanick probably, I don't know if filing a lawsuit would be on the same tables, but he might have an argument to file like a civic suit against the team, maybe. Evan White, he's another guy I think of. He got offered a 5-year team-friendly deal last year. He signed it, and guess who was on the opening day roster last year? I don't think White necessarily deserves to be on the opening day roster. It's clear that he needs more time in the minor leagues, but is he going to get that time? I don't know. Maybe now that Mather's gone, maybe they do, but this is just embarrassing. This is absolutely awful for the organization and their fans. And by the way, Seattle has some of the most loyal fans out there. So to come out and say something like this and say it with such ignorance and confidence at the same time is scary and sad. This guy does not deserve to be in a major league front office ever again. I hope that he's basically banned for life because this was absolutely terrible on his part. And also another note, the apology that he issued on Sunday night, from what I've been hearing, he wasn't the one who actually wrote that apology. It was someone in his office who wrote it for him. So it just goes to show you there. He can't even make up his own apology. He probably meant what he said.
Yeah.
But it's awful. And I can't imagine what else he said about players. Dude, that's all we know right now. But I can't imagine what else he might have said. I think of one more example, Gene Segura. In 2018, in the 2017 offseason, he signed a 5-year deal with the team. And 1 year later, he demanded a trade out of Seattle. And now, hearing what this idiot had said, it makes me wonder if this had something to do with it. And he also got this story wrong about clubhouse fracas that took place between Marco Gonzalez and Mike Leake. He said a fight broke out, which there have been multiple reports saying that didn't happen. There were words exchanged, but that was as far as it went. But there was a time apparently that a fracas did break out in the dugout after a game, or in the clubhouse after a game. And this was around the time that Gene Segura had demanded a trade. This just looks bad. And this is going to hurt the franchise for years. Because Mather did the honorable thing, I guess, with the little dignity that he had and stepped down without having to be told he needed to step down. He just did that himself. So but even though he did that, that's not going to mend some of the relationships that are there. That's good. That broke a lot of trust with people. And it's awful. I'm still upset about it. and it's been like 3 days, and it's still thinking about it just upsets me.
Yeah. It becomes really easy to look back. I know we did our Mariners episode, um, later last month, where we talked about why they've been unsuccessful for the last, 20, 25 years. It starts to look pretty clear. Kevin Mather's been in this position for a long time. I
Yeah.
believe it's been 20 years,
Yeah.
from what Mr. Stanton had said. Um, so I mean, you can almost imagine the level of just crap that's been building up in that organization and the higher ups in that organization for the last 2 decades. Guys who, sitting back in their fat stacks of cash, paying bare minimum to players, paying bare minimum to interpreters for those players. Like, I know some people may try to argue that interpreter isn't a big deal. But just to give an example, like say you're working for a company and that company is sending you to Germany. How many people do you think in Germany speak fluent enough English that you could probably do your job there? I'm gonna guess probably not enough. So you would probably, pretty much demand that your company provide you with someone who's going to be your interpreter for you. You're not going to be like, oh yeah, I'll go hire an interpreter for our trip. You wouldn't. Your company would provide you an interpreter.
Mm-hmm.
They're sending you. You're going to work in a different country, a country that speaks a language that you don't speak. Your company's going to provide you an interpreter. That's literally just what. I mean, you can't. It's just something with a lot of these older people in this nation who, if you don't speak English, get out type of mentality, and it's like you can't be home of the free, um, and at the same time demand that everyone speaks your language. I'm sorry, that's just not how it works. And speaking of Evan White, he was one of the players. I couldn't think of his name, but he was the one that took that very big team friendly deal. He was the one that said that, I think it was like 50 million or 25 million or something like that
Yeah, it
over
was
the
something
course of
like
that
that
deal.
over 5 years.
Like, yeah, that's a lot of money for a kid who probably was just making less than 100,000, the last few years. That's a lot of money for him. But in reality, if he had bet on himself, if the team had bet on him to be successful and not try to, you know, sign him to a team friendly contract like that. Who knows? Maybe he could have got double that. Maybe it would be a couple years down the line still, but he could have got double what that contract is worth, and not only set his family up for life, but set his kids up for life and his grandkids up for life as well. If he's smart with it. So I'm sure that Mariners chairman and managing partner John Stanton probably shares a lot of the same, without knowing him. I'm sure he shares some of the same ideas and thoughts and feelings that Kevin Mather does, because you just don't you don't work with someone who is that hateful of a person for that long of a period if you don't agree with them, especially the fact that Kevin Mather really hasn't been that great at his job. Countless great Mariners teams that has been essentially ruined by lack of talent outside of their Felixes and their Seegers and their uh, A-Rods and their Griffies. They've never really put enough talent on the field to succeed. They've always had a low payroll. So I mean, Kevin Mather hasn't been good at his job. He's not a good person. There has to be a reason why they kept him around for 2.5 decades, and I think that's because I personally, I'm not going to make accusations, but I believe that's because Mariners chairman and managing partner John Stanton may share some of those feelings.
People in that front office probably do share those same feelings. They're just not stupid enough to go out in public and say it. And it is a shame if you're right, you don't work with someone that long and not know them. That's just not how it works. You get to know them over time and you start to figure out their true colors after a while.
Yeah. Anyways, we'll can that aside for now. Maybe once we're done with our projections, maybe we'll come back and revisit it at some point. Maybe. But for now, we do have their team to cover, the Seattle Mariners. We'll kind of go over their 2020 season. They finished 27-33, which is third place in the American League West. Excuse me. One of their biggest pluses from last year was acquiring the top outfield prospect Taylor Tremell from San Diego in the Austin Nola trade, and a sneaky addition that they made was Ty France as well, who they got from San Diego. Ty France, as he was a really good hitter last year in both San Diego and Seattle. Unfortunately for the Mariners, they only finished top 10 in the following American League categories. That would be first in stolen bases, sixth in walks, ninth in hits, and eighth in home runs allowed. So it's crazy to think that they, out of the American League teams, they only finished top 10 in four categories. That's both pitching and hitting. And they only finished, what was that, like 5 games under 500 or 6 games under 500. That's a pretty good, I'm not sure what kind of magic was brewing there, but usually when you see those kind of numbers, usually you're talking about like the Rangers or the Red Sox, a team that finished 15 games under. But the Mariners were able to scrap together some wins last season.
Yeah, and I think there's a part of me that feels like they probably got some luck in there.
Yeah.
And being a 60-game season, again, 60 games doesn't mean a lot. But this team does have a bright future ahead of them. And I firmly believe that. They had a lot of their young talent coming and playing with the team last year. And the fact that they were able to compile a third place division finish, that's really good. I know it's only a short sample size of games, but it goes to show that these guys do have that talent there. And if they put it all together, eventually they could bring a winner to Seattle. As far as 162 game season goes, I would like to see how they do in a full season. But yeah, I mean, they were surprisingly decent last year. I was surprised that they finished above the Angels, especially. Not so surprised they finished above Texas, but definitely surprised they finished above the Angels. They were just a quietly scrappy good team last year. And again, they got the talent there. And in the short sample size of games, they showed a lot of flashes of what they're capable of. And I think in a 162 game season, they can really show what the potential will be.
Yeah. Kyle Lewis, I was here at my house when he got drafted back in 2016. I believe that was 10th or 11th overall. Just looking at when he got drafted, he got a lot of comparisons to like an Adam Jones. And Adam Jones is one of my favorite players of all time. So seeing those comparisons, I was like, this guy's going to be something pretty good. And then he works his way up through the minor leagues. Kind of had a little bit of strikeout issues his rookie year in 2019, but he hit a couple home runs. Then in 2020, the guy breaks out and he's an MVP candidate. Like that was like I called that.
Yeah.
Taking a look at some of the offseason changes for the Mariners, their most recent and what could potentially work out to be their most advantageous addition is Ken Giles. Obviously, he will miss the 2021 season. He suffered a Tommy John. He had that surgery on October, I believe it was October 1st. So he's pretty much slated to miss this year. But, if this is a team that's, prepared to start really competing next year, whether it be having Jared Kalanick, whether it be having Julio Rodriguez, maybe, Gilbert, Delaplane, Fletcher, Joe Rizzo, there's a lot of guys that are really close to getting calls up. It could be next year that they're ready to compete, and having a guy like Ken Giles in the back of that bullpen would be fantastic for them. Some of the other free agent additions that they've made, James Paxton, Keenan Middleton, Chris Flexen, Ronius Elias, who seems to only be good in Seattle. He kind of he wasn't that great in Washington. He wasn't that great in Boston, but he's always been fairly decent out there in Seattle. Former former Marlins late innings guy, Drew Steckenrider. They acquired Rafael Montero from Texas via trade. And then they picked up Will Vest from a Rule 5 off of Detroit. Looking at some of their subtractions, Carl Edwards Jr., the late innings guy, Nestor Cortez, it was okay for them last year. He went back to the Yankees. Hoshihisa Hirano, I believe he was in the desert, wasn't he? Wasn't he in Arizona?
Yep, he
Yep,
broke in
18 and 19.
18. Yep.
So he's a free agent. I don't know. I think he's like 36 or 38 now at this point. I'm not sure he's going to find another job, being that he didn't really set the world on fire last year. It is possible someone takes a minor league deal with him with an invite to camp. We'll see, but I think it's probably more likely he heads back to his native country to play some ball there before he hangs him up. D. Strange Gordon. Another one of my favorite baseball players. He left in free agency to join the Cincinnati Reds. Phil Irvin, the versatile outfielder, he fell off waivers to the Cubs, and then outfielder Malik Smith left in free agency to sign with the Mets. It's been a relatively quiet offseason for them. No moves that really break the bank. But how have you kind of summarized their offseason to this point?
They're in rebuild. It's pretty clear that they're redoing it again. I think their additions that they've made are more filler spots while their young talent develops, and that's okay. Considering that there's 3 teams in the AL West right now that are probably going to be duking it out this year, this is a good time for the Mariners to kind of restart and try and get this right. And hopefully with new management in the front office, they do get it right this time. James Paxton, I think he's going to be a good starter for them. He found some success out there in Seattle years ago. Yeah. I think going back there will be a nice little change of familiar scenery with him. And he'll be a nice veteran presence in that young rotation too. So I do like that. Ken Giles, I did not realize he had Tommy John surgery.
I didn't either. Yeah.
But I think this is a good bullpen addition for them, especially when going into 2022, if this team feels like they're going to be competitive, this is a guy that can help them get there. He has been on winning clubs in the past. So I'm excited to see how Giles performs when he's able to come back. Other than that, there's not really a lot that sticks out. I know Keenan Middleton was a good Angels bullpen piece. Rafael Montero was a decent bullpen piece with the Rangers. So it's kind of, I don't know, it's iffy. I think these are, for what the Mariners are doing as far as a rebuild goes, there's nothing really to turn your nose up at. But these aren't any moves necessarily that are going to put them over the top unless if they get the max performance out of everybody they can. And that's not to say they won't, because I think if there is a team in the West that could surprise everybody, I think it's the Mariners this year. But I just don't think on paper they are still. I don't think it makes them a winning team necessarily. Yeah. I just think it kind of keeps them from being a terrible team. So say they're not gonna compile up the most wins, I don't believe. But not a bad offseason. It's been quiet, and again, they don't have the financial room to make a big splash like they may have back when they had Robinson Cano and Kyle Seeger and Nelson Cruz all on the same team. But yeah, it's quiet, but it works for them. I think this will help them while they're doing the rebuild, at least keep them relevant, maybe keep them out of last place in the division. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing. What's kind of nice is the fact that none of these guys are, nobodies. They're at least signing players who have quality major league experience.
Right.
They're not like the Pirates where they're hiring guys you have literally never heard of before.
Yeah.
They're at least looking to be a 500 team. Looking at how my projected lineup for them goes, I like J.P. Crawford to be the leadoff hitter. I think he's got the capabilities to be that. I like Dylan Moore to be the second baseman. It's unfortunate that they couldn't find someone to take over second base instead. Dylan Moore is a very versatile player. He can play a lot of positions.
Yeah.
And I think he might almost be, more worthwhile coming off the bench than starting. But maybe they like him enough to be the long-term second baseman, and that can always benefit him too. The Kyle Lewis, I have him in center field. Kyle Seeger batting fourth, playing third base. I have Mitch Haniger hitting fifth in right field. I have Evan White, the first baseman, and hitting sixth. I have Jose Marmolejos, the left fielder, hitting seventh, and then Ty France, the DH, hitting eighth, and Luis Torrens hitting ninth. It's not a bad lineup. I think it's an okay lineup. I like that they're bringing some more of their young players up. I actually originally had Jared Kalanick as my center fielder, and then those comments came out. So I'm probably just going to skip on that for now. But there's no reason why he shouldn't be at some point on this major league roster.
If I'm the Mariners, I would almost just give Kalanick an opening day spot just to put down what Mr. Mather himself said, but I'm not going to go into that anymore. My lineup, I have the same guys, just different order. JP Crawford, I do like him as the leadoff guy. I'm glad he's getting us time to start in Seattle.
Yeah.
I think if he was in Philly, I'm not sure how well it would have worked out to be an everyday player, but I'm glad he's getting that chance in Seattle. Dylan Moore, I got him at second base, but I think he might be better suited for the outfield, and he can also play shortstop. I was kind of thinking the same thing as you. I was a little disappointed they didn't try and go out and get a second baseman, but I think Moore is he's a versatile player. Second base is a good home for him right now, but I do think he might be better off in the outfield later on. Maybe even as a bench player, kind of like that top bench guy that you'd bring in later in games. Kyle Lewis in center field. I've got him hitting third. I'm really rooting for this kid. He was a lot of fun to watch last year. I'm hoping that he has those Adam Jones comps. Hopefully this time the Mariners don't make that mistake, and hopefully they keep him around, try to lock him up down the line. Kyle Seeger, I've got him hitting cleanup. Ty France, the DH, got him hitting fifth, and I'm glad that France is getting playing time as well. He just would not have gotten that in San Diego, and he has too high of a ceiling to be a bench player. So I think that the Padres did a good thing there and sending him somewhere where, one, he can help them in a rebuild, but two, he can get his starts in. Jose Marmolejos in left field, I got him hitting sixth. Evan White, I've got him hitting seventh at first base. Mitch Haniger, I've got him hitting eighth right now in right field. Haniger has had a lot of injury issues. The last couple of years. He basically didn't play at all last year, hardly played in 2019, and he's had some freak injuries. Some of the injuries he's had has just been really makes you feel bad for him.
Yeah,
because just like they aren't common injuries, and so
he was a star for them a couple of years ago.
He was one of their best players. He was also a Diamondbacks homegrown product. Definitely miss having him out there, but for right now, I got him hitting eighth. I think he just needs to kind of rebuild his value again. And a healthy season from him, I think, will help this team a lot because he is one of their best players on the team right now. And Luis Torrens, the catcher, I've got him hitting ninth. They also got him in the Ty France deal from San Diego. I don't think this isn't a bad lineup. It's just very young, and a lot of these guys haven't really proven themselves yet. So it's going to be this almost seems non-traditional because I don't know if Ty France is necessarily a middle of the order hitter in most other lineups. I'm not even sure if guys like Evan White and Jose Marmolejos and Luis Torrens, they probably wouldn't even be opening day starters in any other organization. Not shunning their talent, but it's just they're young. They haven't really proven themselves yet, and you don't typically go with guys like that traditionally. So I think that it's a young lineup. It's going to be a really interesting lineup, but I think it could be a fun lineup to watch too, especially once these guys really start to figure everything out.
Absolutely. All right. Shuffling over to our rotation here. I actually decided to create a 6-man rotation for them. I like Marco Gonzalez. He's already been declared the opening day starter for them. Props to him. This is his 3rd year in a row. So go you. I like James Paxton to be their number 2 guy. I think the success that he had in Seattle before he got traded to New York, I hope he refines it. I hope he can cash in again this offseason. James Paxton's one of my favorite pitchers, so I'm always rooting for him. I also have Justin Dunn as the number 3 guy. Seattle seems to be super duper high on him. He kind of flashed on the scene last season, and he in his bullpen so far this year, it actually looks like his velocity has gotten better. So I like him as the number 3. I like Justice Sheffield as the number 4. Yusei Kikuchi is the number 5, and then Chris Flexen is my number 6. I think it's pretty safe to say that Seattle won that James Paxton trade, being that now both Paxton and the player they got for Paxton are going to be in their opening day rotation.
That was Sheffield, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I was debating whether to go 6-man or not. I think I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but I think for right now, I think the 6th spot will be more to save the arms of the younger guys if they start logging innings. I do have Marco Gonzalez as the number 1. Congratulations to him for getting that opening day nod. He's more than earned it. I remember when he was in the Cardinals system, he was just as good down there. He's proven that he can pitch at this level. So congrats to him on getting that opening day nod. Yusei Kikuchi, got him as the number 2. And I also didn't realize how left-handed heavy the rotation is.
Yeah.
That's something you actually don't see a lot with teams. I think this is the first time I've seen 4 lefties in one rotation in a while. But Yusei Kikuchi, I got him as number 2. Justice Sheffield, I've got him as the number 3, and I'm hoping that this is a breakout year for him.
Absolutely.
I think that he's going to be one of those guys that if they can get production out of Gonzalez and Kikuchi and one other starting pitcher, they might be set. And to me, Justice Sheffield is the guy that it feels like this is the year for him to step up and pitch to that high ceiling that he's been projected to pitch to for a while. I like James Paxton as the number 4. Justin Dunn, I got him as the number 5. He's another guy I'm excited for too. But I'm really rooting for these younger guys in Sheffield and Dunn to pitch lights out this year, kind of help carry this team. To me, if the rotation is strong for the Mariners, they have a chance. I think it really comes down to how the rotation does. I'm not worried about Gonzalez and Kikuchi. They've more than proven themselves at this point. How Sheffield and Dunn do, though, in a full season, I'm curious to see kind of what happens there. James Paxton, him being a veteran, that always kind of has some concern as he's gotten older. He's definitely dipped a little more in production. But yeah, I think if this rotation can hold their own, if they can get production outside of Kikuchi and Gonzalez, they have a chance. If not, though, I mean, it's not going to be the end of the world. It just means that the rebuild is going to probably just continue. The rebuild is just going to continue to take place, and they won't be speeding up the process, I guess.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Paxton has suffered, a couple back injuries in his time with New York, so it'll be interesting to see how he kind of bounced back from that. Looking at our bullpens, I think we both pretty much like at least Rafael Montero not to be the opening day closer, but to at least be the favorite to get save opportunities, at least to start the season. Obviously, with a team that doesn't have a set closer like a Dodger, with their Kenley Jansen and the Yankees with Aroldis Chapman, when you don't have a guy like that, it's always kind of up in the air who's going to get saves. I think Rafi at least has an opportunity to nail this down to start. Kendall Graveman, he's coming back. He's missed multiple seasons with a few different injuries. He's excited to come back this year and see what he's got in the tank. Aaron Fletcher, who I will talk about just a little bit. I like him to actually make the opening day roster. I'll tell you more about that later as to why. Keenan Middleton, kind of entering the middle relief innings here. Keenan Middleton, Brandon Brennan, Anthony Mizowicz. I'm going to assume that's how it's pronounced. Mizowicz.
Sounds right.
Casey Sadler, and then the other lefty, Nick Margevicius. I like their bullpen to be another young piece for this club. A lot of guys who maybe haven't proven that they're MLB quality as of yet, but the nice thing is they're going to give these guys plenty of opportunities to do so.
Yeah, it's going to be much like the Rangers. I think Seattle is going to have a very nice competition this spring for bullpen spots. And I don't think really any of their spots are locked in. There is no set closer. There's no set setup man, whatever you want to call it. Although I do think Rafael Montero might be the favorite, like you said. I can definitely get behind that. I think he is the favorite to be the closer to start the year. Kendall Graveman, not too long ago, was a starter in the Oakland A's system. He spent a little bit of time with the Cubs, but he's had those injuries that have just derailed him. And I'm hoping that he'll kind of find himself again in Seattle. Graveman's always been a guy that I've enjoyed watching over the years. I'm excited to see him kind of bounce back. I think he'll be a good long relief option for them, maybe kind of like a middle innings bullpen piece, maybe even emergency starter for them if they need it. Anthony Misiewicz, not entirely sure how to pronounce his name, but I like him being in the back end of the bullpen with Casey Sadler and Keenan Middleton. And then Brandon Brennan. I believe Brennan also can be a starter at times, although they don't see him that way. I think he could be one of those guys we might see make some spot starts here and there. Eric Swanson and then Chris Flexen. And Flexen could go to the rotation as well. But if he's not in the rotation, I imagine he'll be a long bullpen arm piece, which I think it's good to have for a team like the Mariners, since they have a lot of young arms. Having someone in the bullpen who can eat up innings if a start doesn't go well. Actually having multiple guys who can do that, I think is a good thing for them to have. And one thing that wouldn't surprise me, I know Joe Madden kind of experimented with this with Brett Anderson and Mike Montgomery, where he made like starts for them specifically for them, where they were the only two pitchers that would pitch. So like Montgomery might start one game, but then the next game Anderson would start it. So they'd go like back and forth with that. I wouldn't be surprised if the Mariners did something like that, maybe. Just because the rotation has a lot of holes, in my opinion, right now. But this bullpen is very young. I think there's there's positions up for grabs. Anyone could win a spot. Everyone's on notice. So spring training is going to be super important for these guys. Even for the likes of Montero and Graveman and Middleton, who have pretty decent MLB experience, it's probably safe to say that everyone is vying for an opening day spot at this point in the year. Yeah,
and this bullpen, as we've mentioned a couple times now, it's nothing that's going to jump out at you. It's nothing that's going to, lead the league in terms of numbers, but it's a young bullpen. And, when you have a whole lot of young pitchers, there's a possibility that, maybe they mesh together really well and, kind of feed off each other's energy. And it could almost end up being a relatively good unit for them moving forward.
Yeah, if they get production out of these guys, they have a chance, but they got to get consistent production out of everybody. It's teams like the Mariners that typically go out and surprise people, it feels like, where no one really sees them coming because it looks like they have a lot of holes to fill. But then when the talent comes through, when it goes well, and they are very hard to stop. So that's why I say don't sleep on them. But at the same time, I think it's safe to not be so optimistic and assume that they're going to be like the best team out there too.
Correct. Moving over to our three prospects to watch. My first one I'd like to cover is he just cracked the top 100 this year. Taylor Tremell. He is their number 6 in the organization. he's an outfielder. He's played multiple outfield spots. He's not tied down to one specific outfield spot. He's 23 years old. The highest level he has reached at this point is Double A. And as I mentioned earlier, he was a part of the Austin Nola trade that saw him go to San Diego. I've been super high on Taylor Tremell since his days in the Red system. Taylor Tremell, if you can recall, I think it was 2018 where he hit like a 450-foot home run, one of, if not the longest home runs hit in the futures game at any point. Looking at his talent, kind of how he projects to play as a player, his minor league numbers are decent. They're nothing super crazy. But I think he has the potential to be a 2020 guy. He's got some speed, he's got some power. Obviously, he's displayed it. His power is not his go-to element. I think he can definitely, if he can raise his batting average up as he climbs to the minor league ranks, I think it'd be a big plus for him. And his speed could kind of feed off of that. Looking at my next prospect I'd like to cover, I just mentioned him, Aaron Fletcher in the bullpen. He's the number 19 prospect as of right now. As a relief pitcher through going back to his college days in Houston. He's 24 years old. He only pitched 6 games for the Mariners last season. I believe he had an ERA just above 10. Might have been just above 12. So it was not a great outing for him. But in his minor league career, 104 innings, played mostly high A ball. He's the owner of a 2.33 ERA through 104 innings. He's got 118 strikeouts, a 1.016 WHIP, and he's allowed 1 home run.
Wow.
104 innings. And that home run came in 2019, a year that saw him pitch 73 innings to a 2.09 ERA.
Ooh,
with 84 strikeouts, that 1 home run, and a .927 WHIP.
Wow.
I'm prepared for him. He's one of those guys that is gonna stick out to people. He's one of those guys that we literally talked about. Looking at him on paper, you're like, all right, well, I've never heard of Aaron Fletcher before, and then he shows up in the major league level, and he's pitching to a sub 3 ERA, and playing really well.
Yeah.
There's thoughts that he may be used more as a lefty specialist, but people are now starting to believe that he could actually outgrow that and be just a full-fledged late innings guy. I'm rooting for him. When I first looked up his numbers, they're crazy. I think he had like a 2.9 or 2.5 ERA, something like that, in 2018 with Washington's minor league clubs. So Aaron Fletcher is definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Another guy to keep an eye on is third base prospect Joe Rizzo. He is the number 21 prospect in their system. He's 22 years old. He's only reached high A at this point, but Joe Rizzo is a very versatile player. He can play first, second, and third. He's logged starts at all those positions. His offensive numbers aren't crazy huge. But he started to break out in 2019 on 129 games in high A. He hit 10 home runs, drove in 63, and hit 295. Those are all his best numbers to this point. And Joe Rizzo, could kind of almost be someone, not necessarily to be a starting player in the future, but, kind of like what I talked about with Dylan Moore, where he can be a versatile guy off the bench, especially if he can learn some outfield as well. You can play first, second, third, and even just one outfield spot. That's super, super, super needed at the MLB level. Teams, want to have guys who can play multiple positions. Look at Derek Dietrich. Derek Dietrich's a guy who really doesn't. He hits for some power, but he's like a 220 career hitter. And he keeps finding job after job simply because he can play multiple positions. So I'd look for Joe Rizzo to potentially be a guy who sees some playing time at multiple positions at the major league level.
Yeah. I am a sucker for guys who can play multiple positions.
Oh,
yeah. Because I was that guy myself when I played in high school. I could play infield and outfield. So it is important. It's huge to be able to do that. The three prospects I wanted to take a look at, and I would not be surprised if I wrote some of these numbers down. By the way, I am numlexic, so I think I get my numbers mixed up quite a bit unintentionally. But the first prospect I want to take a look at is the number 3 prospect, Logan Gilbert. This is a guy I think is knocking on the door to be on the team maybe this year. And if not this year, he probably could be on opening day next season. But Logan Gilbert is a right-handed pitcher. His highest level reached is AA, 23 years old. He's 10-5 in 26 games. In 26 games, all starts. 2.13 ERA across 135 innings pitched, 165 strikeouts, 33 walks, 7 home runs given up. Has a 198 average against him and a
Wow.
.95 whip. Yeah. This guy, I think, is very much more than capable of holding his own right now. I know they didn't have a minor league season last year, so I don't expect to see him on opening day. But if he goes to AAA, which I assume he probably will start in AAA, or he'll go very briefly to AA and then make the jump to AAA. If he keeps those numbers up, I could see him being a September call-up this year. I could see him being on the opening day roster next year. But he's another young guy that the Mariners are about to bring up to their system, to bring up to the team. And I'm really excited for him. I think the Mariners do have something to look forward to here because they already have Dunn and Sheffield as young guys in their rotation. Adding Gilbert to that mix, they could have a really nasty 3-headed rookie or not rookie class, but like a youngster class in that rotation.
And he's like 6'6", 6'7" too. He's a tall guy on the mound,
and he's lean.
Oh yeah,
as you can see in that
Randy
picture.
Johnson.
Yeah. The next guy I want to take a look at, I have him listed as number 8, but I am guessing he's number 9.
I had to go off of the 2020 roster or 2020 prospect rankings, so he may have jumped up a spot entering this year.
Okay, so I think he's the number 8 prospect. I'm gonna stick with that since that's what I wrote down, but I could be wrong.
I could be wrong.
He's a catcher. Highest level reached also is AA. He's 24 years old. He's played about a full season of what would be equivalent to a full season of major league games in the minors. He's got 159 games on his belt, 334 on base percentage. He's only hitting 260 before catcher. The bat isn't nearly as big of a deal, although it is a nice plus to have. He does have 37 homers in the minors. He hit 29 of them in 2019. So this guy has some power in that bat. 111 RBI, 145 strikeouts. So he averages about a strikeout a game, which isn't terrible, but it's not the best look either. He does have 65 walks, though, so he will take his bases and a .506 slugging percentage. If there's anyone to me that could actually be on the opening day roster as a bench player, Cal Raleigh has a really solid chance of that. And I know he's only reached AA, but Luis Torrens to me is not a future starting catcher. I think he is better suited to be a backup down the line. And if they have a guy like Cal Raleigh who can do really well, at least continue his minor league career on a similar level to what he's at right now, having a 1-2 punch like Raleigh and Torrens behind the plate, I think will be really good for them. This is a guy I can see being on the team sooner rather than later, even if he's just more a backup to Torrens and isn't getting nearly as many starts. I think that this is a guy that Mariners fans should be looking out for. And then the last guy I want to take a look at is Sam Delaplane. I've got him listed as the number 20 prospect.
Okay.
He is also a right-handed pitcher. He's a reliever, 25 years old, highest level reached is AAA. And I was really tempted to put him on the opening day roster, but I'm not. I think just considering the Mariners have some more veteran guys that seem a little more reasonable to put in, I left him off the opening day roster. But in his minor league career, he has a 12-6 record across 100 games, 17 saves, so he does have a little bit of closing experience. 161 third innings pitched. He has a 2.29 ERA to his name, 270 strikeouts. So he has 100 more strikeouts than innings pitched, 109 to be exact. 54 walks. When you look at the strikeout to walk ratio, though, that's not nearly as bad when you look at it. 11 home runs given up. He has a 201 batting average against him and a 1.07 WHIP. I'm really excited for this guy. I think he will be an immediate presence to their bullpen in the very, very nearest future. I'm not sure about service time, how that looks for him. He is 25. He is a little older as far as prospects go. So I imagine that he's getting near the end of his development. But this is a guy, I think, just looking at the numbers from a naked eye, he could be an immediate presence and immediate contributions of this team, especially since the rebuild year. It wouldn't surprise me if they kind of brought him up and down throughout the year to get that major league experience time, to get that work in. This would be the perfect year to do it too, since it doesn't seem like they're going to be competing nearly as much. But I'm really excited for him. I think he will be a good presence for this team. I think he could even be a closer in the making, potentially, if not a closer, maybe like Aaron Fletcher. He and Fletcher anchored down that back end of the bullpen. Fletcher being a lefty, Delaplane being a righty. That could be a really good 1-2 punch right there to be 7th or 8th inning guys. But yeah, I think the Mariners have a lot to look forward to. I really do. They have a good group of prospects that are coming up. They got a lot of guys who expect to see time this year, maybe, and if not this year, next year. There is definitely a lot to look forward to here. They are pretty well rounded all around. As far as minor league prospects go, it's going to be exciting to see how these guys do, and which guys, even if these guys make it up this year. Logan Gilbert, I think, is the guy I'm really looking out for. I really hope that he gets a shot this year to maybe in like a double header if they call him up to make a start for a double header game. Who knows?
Yeah, I'm looking forward. You always love seeing guys like Delaplane who can just strike out.
Yeah.
I always look forward to seeing guys like that. Looking at our 2021 projections for the Mariners, I think they could be as good as an 80 and 82 team. They could be as bad as a 70 and 92 team. It's about a 10-game difference. My 3 key factors, the first and most important is how did the kids play? How do their young players, their bullpen guys are young, most of their rotation is young, and most of their lineup is young. Depending if most of those guys have at least decent serviceable seasons, they could be as good as a 500 team. And if most of them are not that good, I could see them being, as bad as 12 games under 500 or 11 games under 500, I should say. The second key is how the rotation has potential, but will it capitalize? Not just talking about their young guys, even you say Kikuchi and James Paxton, both of them have pretty lofty potential. Even though they're both, I think Kikuchi's almost 30, and Paxton's in his almost in his mid 30s now. But all around, those five guys in the rotation all have high potential. It'll be interesting to see how they can handle things. I believe there's 1,457 innings in a 162 game season, so it'll be interesting to see how they divvy that up. And I think if their rotation can take a good chunk of that, then it would be a lot less stress on their bullpen. And speaking of their bullpen is probably their biggest question mark. A lot of unproven talent there, a lot of high potential talent, but unproven nonetheless. It'll be interesting to see which one of those guys kind of stands out, which one of those guys kind of breaks out, becomes their go-to guy, whether it be Rafi Montero, who becomes the closer they've been missing since Edwin Diaz left, or whether it be a young guy like Delaplane or Aaron Fletcher getting the call up to the big leagues and kind of taking the reins from there. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, so I've got them about a 79 and 83. Seems like a good ceiling for them. I can see their floor being as low as 62 and 100. And the reason for that is they're in a rebuild. And rebuild teams, there are a lot more lows than highs most of the time. I think it just kind of is a sentiment to what you were saying. There's a lot of unproven areas on this team. A lot of guys are going to be playing first full major league seasons this year. Um, Seeing what they did in a short stint last year is good, but how do they handle a full season worth of
Mm-hmm.
games? It's completely different. My second point, offensively, there's just is a lot of question marks for me in that area. How is Jose Marmoleos going to do? How is Evan White going to do? How will Ty France do? Will Mitch Haniger stay healthy? Will Kyle Lewis rebound like he did last season? Um, there are a ton of question marks there for me. I think the offense has a lot to prove this season. And granted, it's not going to be however they do this year is going to be how they do for the rest of time. But again, these guys are playing first full major league seasons. That can be a lot on the body, especially when you're not used to playing 162 games compared to what the minor leagues is, where it's like 114 games or something like that in a season. Um, so that's one concern I have. And then my last one, all the drama that's been taking place just within the front office and management. I think there's a lot of, for me, when there is drama like this that takes place, it can be really hard for teams to come together. And considering how bad this has been, I just don't know how this team is going to be able to perform to the best of their abilities when there is a lot of trust that's been broken. I don't know how Scott Service gets his team to stay focused.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how Service focuses himself, considering everything that's happened. And now the Mariners are looking for a new president of baseball ops. So there's just this drama that's been taking place, and I feel like it's going to really affect the team to some degree this year. It may not, maybe it won't as much as I'm making it out to be, but these things, when they do happen, they can get ugly, and they can get ugly, and they get ugly really fast, like we've seen this weekend. Um, so that is my reason for why I think this team is probably going to be more on the below average to potentially mediocre side of things
Mm-hmm.
come opening day.
Yeah, but regardless, it's going to be an interesting team to watch.
Yeah.
I think they have a very real possibility of finishing third place in that division. Um, Real possibility of finishing last place in that division. I think that unless the Athletics or Astros take a huge step back and the Mariners take a huge step forward, even if the Angels take a step back, I don't see any way that they finish higher than third. Probably more realistically, they finish fourth. But it's going to be an interesting team to watch. A lot of young pieces.
If there is a team in the West that surprises anyone, it's probably them. They
Yeah.
would be the surprise team in the division this year.
Yep. So, as always, you can find us on our social media sites. You can find us on Instagram at Real Dugout Talk. You can find us on TikTok at Dugout Talk. You can find us on Twitter at Dugout Talk 1. You can always find us here on YouTube, Dugout Talk, and you can find us on Facebook at Real Dugout Talk. Appreciate you guys sticking with us today. I know we kind of got a little ranty there at the beginning, but there's some things that just have to be said when corruption is afoot.
Yeah, it's just one of those things you gotta talk about the real life stuff. Sometimes we try to just cover the baseball stuff, but sometimes you've gotta talk about the real life stuff that's taking place.
Mm-hmm.
We leave politics out of it, but we just kind of speak the truth for what it is and what it's worth.
Yep.
We're going to be covering the Houston Astros tomorrow. They got second place in the AL West last year, so we're going to be covering them. If you know any Mariners fans, please share this episode with them. If you know any Astros fans, be sure to share this podcast tomorrow. We got some pretty good recognition yesterday. The Angels episode really caught some fire. One of our subscribers gave us a lot of information to help us out with the episode. And then from there, it just really took off. We got some new subscribers on YouTube, I've noticed. So thank you to all you guys. Unfortunately, the notifications do not show us who the subscribers are. But we thank you for the new subscribers that we've been getting. We thank you for everyone that has been following us up to this point on our social media platforms. It's been a great ride up to this point. Hard to believe we've been doing this for a month already. It doesn't feel like it. It's been definitely a fun time for sure. But again, thank you guys for being with us today. We'll be covering the Astros tomorrow. But until then, we'll see you.
I actually have their names right here. Huge thank yous to Ed R, Ray Mejia, and Matt Nelson. You guys are our 3 new subscribers just from the past day. Appreciate it.
Yes.
Just wanted to make sure, we do this for you guys. We as much as we love talking about baseball, I love every opportunity I get to talk baseball with people who love the show as well.
Absolutely. Well, until again, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for joining us.
See you guys.